Okay, I looked it up, and the reason I like to take a break and take a look at words is there's words I don't know, and I don't want to sit here and act like I know what the word means if I don't know, because that's just kind of foolish, in my opinion. So I like to take a little break and look it up so I know what I'm talking about. But impetus, or impetus, means force or energy, so they're saying that's all, the kickstart they needed. Lotus's words were all the impetus they needed. Back to the large hospital room they went. Hopefully they're here and not, stabbed to death. The moment they stepped inside, a tremendous voice echoed across the room. Hey! Where the heck did you guys go? It was 7. Ace was right behind him, and Clover was behind Ace, although she seemed to be hanging back. I'm sure there's a good reason for that. It looked as though there was something strange about them. 7 had the look of a man who'd seen a ghost. Ace was just as pale, and Clover looked as though she was only moments from passing out entirely. For a long moment, they simply stood there, looking at one another. Junpei looked around nervously, waiting for someone else to speak. No one did. He looked at 7. What happened? What the heck kind of a question is that? 7 was trying very hard to be angry, but something had shaken him hard. His shoulders were trembling, and his voice was strained. Snake is... 7 couldn't finish. He just looked away, his face twisted by... Junpei wasn't sure what. Instead, Ace spoke. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke. Snake is... dead. He died, just as the 9th man did. Oh no! It was as if all the air had suddenly been sucked out of the room. And it's the scary music again. Junpei felt his heartbeat quicken, and he realized he was having trouble breathing. He could feel cold sweat beating on his forehead and neck. June, Santa, and Lotus looked the way he felt. All 3 were frozen in place, their faces white. Oh my god, that's not true, is it? We should make sure. Yeah, right, we should. They nodded to one another and headed for the number 3 door. Wait, not that way. They stopped short and turned to look at 7. Did he prop open the doors? He was pointing at the door with no number. I stuck a screwdriver in there to keep the door from closing all the way. It's not locked, so you can go in that way. Where is he? The shower room, on the left side of the hallway. I put a broom in there too, to keep the door open. We can get in without going through the numbered door, right? Yeah, that's right. Their new destination clear, Junpei and his companions headed for the door with no number. And let's see how they're going to react. I mean, we kind of already have an idea, but let's just check. Once in the hallway, it was easy to spot the metal door on the left wall. It hadn't been open when they'd gone through before. But now, just as 7 had said, there was a broom stuck between the door and the frame, keeping it open. They looked at it for a moment, then stepped inside. Ugh, it smells horrible. It smells like Snake. Lotus wrinkled her nose and covered her mouth in disgust. Even Santa pinched his nose shut. Yeah, this is pretty awful. I guess this would be Lotus's first time seeing it. I mean, of course for this playthrough, but I mean this is our first time seeing her reaction, because she wasn't in here last time. Yeah, this is pretty awful. I feel like I'm gonna puke. It was just as bad as they had said, perhaps worse. A hideous smell filled the air, so thick they could almost taste it. It was sour and smelled of fish, feces, and burned meat. It worked its way through Junpei's nose, and down his throat to pound against the entrance to his stomach. He put his hands over his mouth and struggled to keep what little was in his stomach where it belonged. They didn't have to wonder where the body was. There was blood everywhere, a few arms of the splatter reaching towards them as they walked in through the door. All one had to do was follow the many radial arms to their source. The body itself was hidden behind a divider. June, you should stay here. But, please, just do me a favor, okay? Alright. He didn't give her a chance to say no. He put his hand on her shoulder, as if to shove her into the ground like a tent pole, turned, and walked towards the end of the divider. It felt like it took an eternity for him to get there. Santa and Lotus followed, timid and nervous as a pair of children. Eventually, they reached the divider. They looked at one another and nodded, slowly. Junpei put his hands on the divider and peered around the corner. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. He felt his heart collapse in his chest, like an empty cigarette carton, and time froze. He knew that in that instant, it would take the image before him to the grave. He would take it to the grave. What was left of the body sat in a sea of blood. Chunks of flesh, torn from the body, sat in the blood like tiny islands in a great red sea. A vast, ragged hole had been torn in the torso, and what remained of his intestines spilled out of it like fresh spaghetti. Smaller chunks of meat had splattered against the wall and become stuck there as they dried. Globules of yellow fat had left trails like tiny slugs. I think we've already read this, but I'll read through it. Just like Ace said. Santa's voice was strained. Junpei suspected he was holding down some vomit of his own. Just like the ninth man. The detonator in his bracelet set off the bomb in his gut. It looked like as though the explosion had been quite powerful. His legs were both bent in an odd, unnatural way, and his left arm had split open, exposing the painfully white bone of his ulna. His bracelet lay next to him. It seemed to have hit the wall hard enough to have shattered the display, which lay on the ground in pieces. Half of his head had simply collapsed. The blood coating had almost made it look like raw pizza dough covered in tomato sauce. His clothes, too, were covered in blood. The burgundy tie, the white shirt, the jacket with the yellow piping, and the gray slacks. They were all familiar to Junpei. No mistake about that. It's Snake. Lotus's voice was unnaturally deep and strained, and Junpei heard it catch in her throat. And I think that's all they needed to see. So what are they going to do from here, I wonder? Because now, not only have we been through all the doors, like both of the doors, but we've also seen door 3. So we kind of know what's in all the rooms, actually. The squeal of tortured metal made Junpei's teeth curl. Sounded like the noise a ghost would make. No matter how many times he heard it, he never got used to it. And I'm curious if this one in particular is important because they mention it. Like, they mention it particularly. And I'm wondering if that means something. Because at this point, we ended up separating again and going off, you know, to the confinement rooms and the torture room, and then everyone died afterwards. So I'm wondering if that means anything. Every time it put him on edge. It didn't help that there was a girl nearby who looked far more like a ghost than a living human should. It was Clover. She sat on the edge of the bed, her head drooping listlessly onto her chest. Her eyes were blank and stared across the room at nothing. Her breathing was slow and mechanical. Aside from the rise and fall of her chest, she didn't move. Junpei felt as even a nudge might cause her to shatter into 1,000 pieces. I think we've seen this before. Yeah, I think we have. If I can hold right and skip it, so that means we have. And they're going to talk about what we've already seen before. So I'll come back when something happens. I know we're over time, and I apologize, but I can't find a good stopping point yet. So I'm just going to skip till I find something that we haven't seen. Well, actually, now that I mention it, we can make these decisions again, but with different choices. So let's do those really quick. Was Zero still on the ship with him? And Junpei wasn't sure this time. He wasn't sure. Hey, I'm just wondering about one thing. And what's that? How can you be so sure that Zero's on the ship? Ace's eyebrows shot up. Really, Junpei? I confess, I'm a little disappointed. Usually you're rather sharp. Are you sure? Because Junpei's been a little... He's not been the sharpest tool in the box. He hasn't had it all together this playthrough. He's like, oh, what is that? What is the digital root of that number? And he's like, is that the stupid number? And he's like, oh, no, that's not it. Isn't it obvious? Obvious? How so? This ship. Huh? Zero said this ship several times when he addressed us. I am Zero, the captain of this ship. And while he could have said that on purpose to confuse us, you can sometimes, if it isn't like rehearsed to the point that you memorize it, it can be used. People saying stuff like that, you can get clues from things like that. So the captain of this ship would likely mean that he's on this ship, unless he's purposefully trying to confuse us. But I would say likely not, though I'm sure it couldn't escape him if he did want to do that. The purpose of the game is simple. Leave this ship alive. As you've no doubt surmised, this ship has begun to sink. And if he was trying to say, you know, if he weren't here, he wouldn't say this ship, would he? He'd be saying something like that ship or the ship. Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Ace's explanation made perfect sense. Junpei felt a little foolish that he hadn't seen it himself. Still, he was left with a question, and it was one of no small importance. If Zero's on the ship, where is he? Suddenly, everyone went very quiet. The silence was cold and clammy. Let's see, is this stuff that we've read before? Yeah, it is, so let's skip to the next one. Let's see. One of their faces was that of the jailer, but who? Junpei said. What did Junpei say? Was it possible that Zero could be one of the people on the ship, one of us, or is that crazy? And I think he would say that's crazy this time. That's crazy. Isn't this ship going to sink in a few hours? If Zero was here with us, he'd be putting himself in danger. Why the heck would he do something like that? There's no motive. Clover looked up at Junpei, and her face fell. You don't believe me. Her eyes were so pitiful. The moment Junpei met them, he felt his heart tighten. He didn't think what he said was wrong. But perhaps the way he'd said it had been. He'd been too insensitive. Clover had just lost her brother. His death would have been bad enough, but she'd also seen the blasted wreck of his body. Junpei barely knew him, and the sight had been enough to make him sick. What Clover had felt, he couldn't even begin to imagine. In the mental state she must have been in, it was understandable that she would look at those around her with suspicion. But at least she didn't stab Junpei in the throat. She felt everyone was against her. The least Junpei could have done was try to understand what she was feeling. He felt ashamed of what he said. Perhaps he thought he should apologize. But before that apology could begin... Clover, I understand what you're feeling. You don't feel that you can trust any of us. Ace had beaten Junpei to the punch. To the punch, I don't know why I emphasized that. As he spoke to Clover, his face was calm and friendly. But you have to understand. The more we distrust one another, the further we fall into our true foe's trap. Zero is the one who did these horrible things to your brother. Do you want to let yourself be manipulated by someone who would do such a horrible thing? Clover didn't answer. She didn't even look at Ace. Also, if for any reason the text just starts like going really fast as if I'm skipping it, it's because every couple of times I'm just testing the skip to see if it's something that we have read before and I just forgot it. So if it does, that's the reason why. The whole time, her eyes were on Junpei. He could feel Clover's eyes boring into him. They were the color of a deep winter lake. Junpei saw no suspicion in them, only sadness. Then, in that horrible silence... Oh, the bell again. They heard a bell begin to ring. It was the clock at the central staircase. 3 in the morning. Ah, okay, good. This is more skippable stuff. Then we need to move now. 7 and Clover. I know how you feel, but you do understand that right now, it's important we trust one another, don't you? 7 and Clover remained silent. Their eyes were looking at something somewhere else, very far away. We must go. We have very little time left. Ace's words put their feet to moving. And, okay, some more skipping. Now, okay. So they're going here, and I can't skip anymore, which means this must be new stuff. It's sad. Let's see. Their destination was Mercury. Now, why would they go to Mercury? Why not to door 6? That's a little confusing. Why wouldn't they talk about that? That's a little odd. Okay. But whatever. So I guess they're going to the Mercury. The Mercury card reader. Junpei stood in front of it with the Mercury key card. 7 had given him the card. I found it when we were checking out the shower room. At least, that's what he said. Junpei slid the card through the reader. The light on the reader turned green and made a tiny electronic noise. Now they were ready. Junpei and June had been chosen as the investigators. The reasoning being that they had been to E-Deck before, and no one else had. As before, Junpei sent the elevator ahead to make sure the floor they were heading to wasn't flooded. As before, the elevator returned as dry as when it had left. Once it had been checked for water, Junpei and June stepped into the elevator. I'm a little curious why they would have them go first. Like, I understand that they checked it before, but are they thinking that maybe Junpei and June are lying? Because that doesn't really boost their confidence in them. But are they trying to send them off first just in case that Junpei and June were setting a trap? That could make a little more sense. I'm not really completely understanding it, but that's my idea. There were only 2 floor buttons they could push. The C and the bottom buttons. The rest were destroyed or did nothing when pushed. Now, are these the same? No, this is different. Junpei hit the bottom button. The door closed. Slowly, they began to move downward. Sometime later, Junpei and June stepped off the elevator and onto the bottom deck. They stepped off and saw that the hallway to the right ended somewhere between 20 and 25 feet from them. The hallway in front of them was a dead end, but not a regular dead end. So there's that 2 door again. Now, we immediately headed into this room last time. I think the only reasoning behind that was that because we didn't have the key to go the other way. Because we only went through the 3 door, so we didn't have the key to open, I believe, whatever the other door was. But the other group did, didn't they? They must have found it wherever else they went while we were in the 2 door. That might make a little more sense. Which means there could have been a lot that they could have done when we went in the 2 door, now that I think about it. Just my own rambling thoughts, sorry. This is a numbered door. This is the 8th one we found. There were 2 numbered doors on B deck, near the central staircase. They were doors 4 and 5. There were 3 more numbered doors in the large hospital room. Doors 3, 7, and 8. Junpei and June had found another door on E deck, and Lotus and Santa had found a 7th on A deck. There was a 6 on the door on E deck, and a 1 in the door on A deck. 4, 5, 3, 7, 8, 6, 1. And now door 2 stood in front of Junpei. There was only one thing it meant. Do you think the next door we find... Yeah, I think so. The next one's gonna be door 9. Despite himself, Junpei felt excited. There was something about that excitement that frightened him as well. He did his best to put it from his mind and headed back to C deck with June. So I guess we did find something here, and instead of immediately going in it, because we couldn't have gone with 2 people anyway, but instead of immediately going in it, now we're going to be able to review all our options, maybe? That's an idea right there. Alright, let's open these up. The pieces of paper they folded up laid on the ground next to Junpei's legs. Oh, are they just randomly choosing, I guess? They were written on paper pulled from Junpei's notebook, and each one bore a code name and a door. Why had they decided to vote that way? They decided it wasn't fair to simply ask everyone at once. That would allow people to force others to go through certain doors. Well, that wasn't the only reason. Junpei had proposed the voting system, and he had a plan. It wasn't a plan he wanted anyone catching wind of, however, so he did his best to act calm as he began to open and read the pieces of paper. So Junpei wants to do a number 3 door again, where he just forces everyone, it sounds like? Because he's got a plan, quote-unquote. The first one read, Ace requests door 1. Yes, I do. Would you like me to explain why? No, we don't have the time for that, sorry. Let's keep going. He opened the second one. Next is Santa. He wants door 6. Yeah, that's what I wrote. Junpei continued with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pieces of paper. Clover wants 1, Lotus wants 2, 7 also wants 2... Eh? Wait a minute. There's no way I'm going anywhere with the Elephant Man. No. There'd be no point to the voting system if we let people change their choices because of stuff like that. But... just give it up, Lotus. It's not like I want to hang out with some exhibitionist grandma. I'm not an that is the word I have trouble saying. Expositionist. I'm wearing clothes. Barely. So? Last I checked, that's not a crime. Maybe, but what about common decency? Nobody wants to have to look at a chick who looks like a half-naked raisin. I'm going to kill you. With a knife. In the throat. Lotus's hair flared out like the mane of an angry lion, and she roared with a voice that shook the walls. With some difficulty, Ace managed to restrain her. Junpei, read the rest. Right. Junpei tore his eyes away and looked down at the 6th piece of paper. He opened it. June wants door 6. Yes. I don't really have a reason, I just felt like it. All of the papers save Junpei's had been read. He did some quick calculations in his head. People who requested door 1 was Ace and Clover. This was the door on A deck, near the central staircase. People who requested door 2, 7 and Lotus. This was the door on the bottom deck, and could be reached by taking the elevator to the bottom of the ship. People who requested door 6 are Santa and June. This was the door on E deck, and could be reached by taking the elevator near the central staircase down. So what does this all mean? It took him less than a second to run the numbers. He opened the 7th piece of paper and spoke. Okay, then the last one is mine. I want to go through... Oh, so he didn't write his down. He did not write his down. Okay. Now, we have a decision to make here, and I was told, the last instruction I was given for the route that I should take this time was I should go first through door 5, which we did. After that, I go through door 8, which we did. And I was told for the final decision to not choose door 2, which I'm assuming would get us either the same or a similar ending to what we had gotten before. So next time we are going to choose door 1 or door 6. I honestly have no preference. I really, really don't. So, if anyone does have a preference, let me know in the comments, and I'd be perfectly willing to take that way. If you don't, I will choose one at random and go through it. Once again, I really, really don't care. It's just a number. It means nothing to me at the moment. So if anyone knows this game and has a preference, or if you just, feel so inclined to a number, let me know, and I'll go with that as long as it's not 2, so 1 or 6. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's extra long episode. Thanks for watching, and next time we will make the decision on which way we want to go. I hope they don't find out my little ruse, the fact that I didn't actually write anything on the paper, apparently. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more 999. Bye!